We are a community, and we must support each other, because that's the only way that we're going to survive. We are interrelated. The myth of the autistic person being aloof and distant and never interacting with anybody. We all need human interaction. We all need support. And it may look in different ways for different people, but we all need that. Episode 47, Autistic-Centered Therapy. Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast. Each episode, we dive deep into autistic contributions to society and culture by introducing you to some of the world's most famous and successful autistics in history.
Before we get started, a quick disclaimer on how we use the word autistic. The purpose of this show is not to diagnose the people or characters we discuss as autistic. While some may have announced being autistic, what we're really sharing here is our observation of what is representative of autistic culture. It can sometimes be difficult for autistic people to celebrate our natural tendencies and traits due to the perception of autism as a disorder that needs to be fixed, a long history of damaging medical interventions to get autistics to fit in with mainstream culture, and protective masking skills many of us have developed to try to stay safe.
Whether you are autistic or just love someone who is, your hosts, Dr. Angela Loria, the linguistic autistic,
and licensed psychological practitioner Matt Lowry, welcome you to take this time to be fully immersed in the language, values, traditions, norms, and identity of Autistica. Hey, Angela.
Matt? What are we talking about?
So today I figured, since, it's been a thing that's come up quite often. How do autistic people find services that we actually need? Because, as you well know, the biggest thing that people try to push on us is like ABA. Because a lot of
especially kids, I think.
Exactly.
Like that's in our bad autism diagnosis thing. It's like you get your diagnosis and then you want a prescription, right? You're like, what do I do? And because they have a monopoly on insurance companies and associations, it's like that's where kids just automatically kind of get shuttled.
Exactly. And because neurotypicals in the kids' world say, oh, hey, you're weird, stop being weird. So they say, hey, go to a behaviorist, and they will change your behavior because they don't understand why the kid is doing what they do.
And then I think for adults, late diagnosed adults, the normal thing, because you're probably not going to go into an actual ABA program, but I know for me, I went into CBT.
Exactly.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, which was just, here's how to act normal. Here are all the ways to act normal. And you know what I actually got my therapist recommended in the first session? I can't remember the name of it, but it was this bracelet.
Yeah. And God.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And so whenever I would like bite my nails or flap my hands, it would like give me like a zap.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
She was like,
no, I've heard about like a snap with a rubber band. I didn't know about electricity. Oh, my God.
Actual electricity. She's like, it'll buzz you. And isn't that what they do with dogs? Like somebody had like a bark collar and
it's what they did with old school ABA. And that's what they still do with the Judge Rotenberg Center.
Yeah.
They use
I had
electricity.
That.
Oh, my God.
I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. Didn't work.
No kidding.
Shocker. Spoiler alert. Don't get that thing.
And that's the thing, because CBT does not work for us because it's not structured for our brains.
It's really too bad.
It's touted as the be-all, end-all therapy solution for all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, CBT is based around, oh, you should not feel depressed. Stop feeling depressed. And
give yourself a zap if you're feeling depressed. Smile. Turn that frown upside down.
Yeah, it's essentially gaslighting. But for neurotypical people, it starts pruning their synapses. But since we don't do that, it's completely meaningless for us. And again, because after we turn 18, neurotypicals don't believe that we can be autistic, or if you're a woman or Black or anybody besides a young white cisgender boy, the world has a difficult time seeing this. And this is a reason why I no longer accept insurance, because I wasn't paid for 6 months because a major insurance carrier said, Matt, adults can't be autistic, and they denied all of my claims for 6 months. And I could not live like that, so I no longer accept insurance. And so over the years, and so when I went through a divorce, I've been to therapy several times in my life. I had PTSD from when my son was in the NICU. I had PTSD from my divorce. I went into therapy, and I would talk to my therapist and say stuff like, yeah, I'm eating healthy choice meals now. And I would get criticism like, you should be cooking real meals because healthy choice meals are full of preservatives and stuff. And I was like,
oh yeah, I forgot that lecture. I got that one.
Yeah, the alternative is that I don't eat because I haven't had the functional ability to do such things. So thanks for the criticism there. And so again, for some time, I've realized that most therapy measures are not built for an autistic brain. And
I want to share one other one. So I was super suicidal in the fall of 2020, summer and fall of 2020. So I went to therapy, and it was a good therapist I had worked with before. And she kept asking me, how do you feel?
Of course.
And then that was a very hard question for me because alexithymia, you guys can listen to some past episodes if you don't know that one. But what actually happened, my therapy appointments were Friday at 10. And I knew she was going to ask me how I felt.
Oh, God.
So scripting, the night before, I would start freaking out about how am I going to answer? How do you feel? So then I would write 20 or 30 answers to the question, how do you feel? So I could pick multiple choice.
So you could workshop the presentation on how you feel.
So I could work right. Yes, exactly. So then I would did that. And then a lot of times I would perform very well. And so I think she felt like it was a really good therapy session. She got me to say my feelings because I had and then I started really dreading therapy because I had all this homework of all the scripts because I had to imagine all the ways the conversation would go. I worked with her for a while, so I kind of knew. And then which ones would please her the most. She likes the little tears. So I'm which script is going to lead to the tears so that she feels good? Because I didn't want her to feel bad about the hour that she was spending with me and the $150 I was spending.
Yeah.
But then I started canceling the appointment because I didn't have time for all the homework and all the scripting, and then not being able to sleep that night to make sure I was memorizing my parts. And then, so then I was canceling, but then I still had to pay a cancellation fee.
Oh, God.
Or I actually had to pay the full fee because I would cancel later. I would just no show. The therapy was definitely making me need therapy.
Yeah.
And so in November, I think I started in July. And by November, I quit therapy. And then I got this lecture from her, and I really looked up to her. Donna, I still love her. But then she's like, I'm super worried about you. You're super suicidal. You should not be leaving therapy. And that's definitely the conventional wisdom. I shouldn't be leaving therapy, but therapy was definitely making things so much worse for me. I was feeling better, except on Thursday nights when I had to prepare my presentation to people please Donna.
Exactly. People pleasing. That's the thing. Because you need to get a good grade in therapy because that's
how I know I'm valuable, Matt.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the horrifying thing about all this. And that's the reason so much of this. And that's a good therapist. She wasn't just CBT, super skilled. I found her through a domestic violence shelter that I had to go to when I was experiencing domestic violence, very well informed, African-American, understands the intersectional experience, knew I was autistic. This is a good therapist. I had a good therapist. Yeah.
And it didn't work for me. Talk therapy was not jamming for me.
No. And again, when you go back to the alexithymia and how are you feeling, that's such a nonsense question for our people. And where are you feeling that? What do you mean, where am I feeling it? It's in your body. Brain, where my feelings
Where in your body do you feel that? I'm like,
that's the thing. That's the thing, because
my
exactly.
feet are hot. Is that a good answer?
And when, because that's the thing. And even the best therapists out there are not well educated on our experience. Because again, like, the time when I gave that report to a woman, and she gave it to her therapist and said, I don't know about this interoception. That sounds a little sketchy. And like, well, there's Google. You could look up it on
you
Google.
could Google that shit.
Yeah. But so many people don't know about interoceptive difficulties and how we process the world. So we need this drastically, and with our intense emotions, because I tell my people up front, I talk about the limits of confidentiality, that, if you say you're going to hurt yourself today, I've got to say something to make sure you don't hurt yourself. But I also tell them, because of our emotional intensity, because of our hyperconnected amygdala, we are going to feel suicidal on a regular basis, because we live in a world that hates and fears us. We live in a world full of all sorts of difficulties, all sorts of executive functioning problems, all sorts of financial difficulties, all sorts of issues that we have to overcome, and we are going to feel suicidal. Please tell me so that we can talk through the suicidal stuff. And if anyone is feeling suicidal at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, please let me know. We will work through it, because it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. Right. And that is the way of our people. We have huge good feelings and huge bad feelings. And we need to acknowledge the huge good feelings, and we need to acknowledge the huge bad feelings. We need support in our time of needs of support. And we need to eliminate the shame around that, because if somebody feels uncomfortable talking about the suicidality because they're afraid that they're going to be sent to, I don't know, a substandard mental institution, or that they're going to lose custody of their children,
right,
or that
their
they're
job,
going to lose their
housing.
So many social consequences from being open to a person who's supposed to be trusted. And we outline all of that, because this is part of how we function. So that there's so many things that we need to do differently for autistic people. And I'll be doing a training. We're going to be doing a few trainings with Meg, now Farrell, formerly Meg Proctor, with Learn, Play, Thrive. We're doing a summit in January to talk about the basics of all this kind of stuff. But we're going to do further stuff about how to do an autism affirming evaluation, and even further stuff about autistic-centered therapy. So hopefully we won't. Hopefully we will be able to, and the summit in January will be recorded. So if you're listening to this in January or February, you could still join and learn all sorts of neat stuff. And we will, talk about more about autistic-centered therapy there. But
we'll
I
link
want to
Learn, Play, Thrive, because there's, depending on when you're listening to this, there'll be stuff that you can. Is it? Yeah, Learn, Play, Thrive is Meg's actual
if
company.
You're listening
I'm
to
sure
this
there'll
in
be links there.
Assuming assuming that Spotify and iTunes survives, which why won't they? They'll be one of the two corporations left, Highlander style. But you'll hopefully be able to learn about it. But I want to tell people about this, because I've been developing this for years. I've been developing it with my friends who are all autistic therapists. We will include a link to a graphic that you might be able to use, made by my friend Cade Sharp. There's a big description written by my friend Amanda Bessinger. There's Amy's last name. I know, I talk to people on Facebook, so I know her name is something else, but I don't want to give away her confidentiality. But anyway, and Rachel, Leah. Oh, what are your people's last names? You all use code names. We're like the Justice League. But anyway, we'll include more of that. But anyway, I've got a group of really, really good autistic friends who we've workshopped this, we've practiced it. This is how we do things, and this is how we do therapy for autistic people. And I want to tell you a little bit about it today, so it's something that you can talk to your therapist about, so that you can get the help that you need, or find some, because again, we live in a world where somebody says, I'm neurodiversity affirming, I use the good ABA, and because the word neurodiversity is like organic and is largely meaningless these days.
Yeah.
So these are the things to look for when you go to therapy, and how you can. Also, I forgot. Yeah, when Arcadia, our autistic-led autism center, opens, we will be a hub of research to validate all of the characteristics, all of the traits, all of the services through autistic-centered therapy. So hopefully we can prove it to the world and get it reimbursed by insurance and all this other stuff, because we're only going to see autistic people. We're going to have autistic therapists. We're going to have autistic OTs, speech language pathologists, PTs, social workers, a medical doctor, all sorts of people practicing autistic-centered therapy and how autistic people need to go. So, it's
I just want to pause. I want to talk about a few categories, and then we're going to break down autistic-centered therapy, but just depending on who you are as a listener.
We love sharing stories of autistic culture, and if you are seeing yourself in any of these stories and you're wondering if maybe you're one of us, or maybe you're already diagnosed or self-diagnosed, and you want to know if Matt can help you live your life better and be more authentically autistic, check out his website at mattlowrylpp.com. That's Matt, M-A-T-T, Lowry, L-O-W-R-Y. And then that LPP, it stands for Licensed Psychological Practitioner. So head on over to mattlowrylpp.com and learn more about working with my buddy Matt.
So the number one most common interaction I have with our listeners are people who are like, I think I figured out from listening to your show, I'm autistic, my partner's autistic, my kid is autistic, my adult kid is autistic. What is your recommendation for? Actually, it's not what is your recommendation. It's what's Matt's phone number? Can I hire him? So that is true. That is actually true. I get that question on the daily. And if they're not in Kentucky, your calendar's super full. If they're not in Kentucky, like by all means, go to Matt Lowry LPP and see if Matt's available and he's a fit for you. But sometimes if you're out of Kentucky or Matt's schedule is full, he cannot serve every autistic person, sadly.
I'm always impressed to hear from somebody from like Uganda. I love meeting new people from across the world. I love meeting new autistic people globally. There's just strict laws about international practice.
Yep, so. I know I've sent you someone from Canada, someone from Australia, and it's just like, that doesn't work. Okay, so thing number one, if you want to work with Matt, I get it. I know you all tell me you want to work with Matt. That's not always an option. Second thing is, there are, and you can Google these and find them, there are neurodiversity practitioner directories.
On the
Neuroclastic.
That's
not, Neuroclastic is a great one, but that's not a straight up check mark.
Yeah.
So you still want to go, I mean, it's good. It's a great place to start. That is what I recommend. Go to a neurodiversity affirming directory. I know of 2 different ones. There are probably more out there. But then you want to be listening for keywords. Like I can hear them really quickly now. Like I asked somebody what they thought of ABA and they're like, I wouldn't say it's all bad. And I was like, that's not the right answer.
Yeah,
but
it's like
say
there's
more.
some good gay conversion therapy.
Right.
No,
exactly.
there's
but
not.
I was like,
there is not.
I asked a couple more questions. I knew the follow-ups then.
Yeah.
So like then I could ask more specific stuff. And one of our listeners who figured out her adult son was autistic, she's probably listening. Hi. She got an evaluation for him. We talked about finding a practitioner. She got evaluation. She sent it to me. I was completely dreading it because I knew she was like a new listener. She found it. I read that evaluation. Oh my God, it's amazing. I love this woman. I'm like, hire her, hire anyone she recommends. Like you can spot it in 2 seconds. So second goal with this episode is for you to just get savvier about spotting the right words so that you pick the right person. Now, if you are a therapist and you're listening and you want to get trained in autistic-centered therapy, go to Learn, Play, Thrive, maybe sign up for those courses. Like, that's great. If you take this episode to your therapist, like my amazing therapist, Donna, who I loved and tried to perform theater for her for an hour once a week. If I said to Donna, hey, here's an episode of a podcast with somebody teaching autistics, could you give me this? She probably can't. Like, people are pretty entrenched. Yeah. And if you listen to Meg's podcast, and she's talking mostly to like speech language pathologists, she's doing a lot of work to try and open them up to the possibility there possibly could be a different way of looking at years and years of training and practice. Yeah. But you can't just hand this podcast episode to a therapist and be like, do this kind. This is more about helping you spot the right therapists to work with. And also, if you're working with someone who is not autistic centered, just get out. You're not going to fix them.
It's not your job to train your therapist.
And it really isn't. It really isn't. So I just wanted to say that as a caveat, if you're listening, I know lots of you are. I asked Matt, let's break down autistic-centered therapy. I've read some blog posts, but I think sometimes hearing it from Matt, who's part of this consortium that like you guys created it and you're codifying it and testing it. Let's get some of it out there so people can start talking about it. But yeah, you're not going to change your therapist overnight. This is about finding the right practitioners. And if you're in Kentucky, hopefully you'll have Arcadia you can come to soon.
Exactly. And that's the great thing about this, because it's really simple. It's 4 parts. There are only 4 parts to this, but again, they make all of the difference. The first part and the biggest part is what we call autistic interpersonal therapy, because there are so many autistic people in the world who don't know how to be autistic, because you've grown up in a world that demeans you, that tells you to be different, that tells you to be something else, and you don't know how to be the genuine you. We have to do a lot of uncovering. We have to talk about your special interests. We might have to find your special interests. We might talk about rejection sensitivity, PDA, which a lot of people define as pathological demand avoidance. We define it as persistent drive for autonomy. We talk about our communication differences. And again, one of the biggest things that we work on is how to interact on a genuine level so you don't have to script. Because again, we speak with our accents. We go off on wild tangents. We might talk about penguins for 45 minutes. But again, when we talk about penguins, they're somehow related to the thing that brought us in. And then when we find that and find why, that's a big area to work on, because we've got to work with your brain wherever it goes. We do not take a judgmental approach about what you think, how you think, where you think. We do this, and a big part of this is, again, understanding like proprioceptive needs, so you can bounce while you're doing therapy. You can rock back and forth. You can stim. You are encouraged to stim and rock and bounce and make noises and do all of these things that make us who we are. Whereas if you went to a therapist where you have to perform, you might be very conscious of, I'm going to sit here with my hands in my lap, looking straight ahead and making eye contact for an entire 50 minutes. And no, we might rarely make eye contact. I do a lot of therapy where a person will sit around and face the opposite direction because that's easier.
That makes perfect sense, actually. Fine. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, because again, we meet people where they are. And I know that that's a mantra in like hopefully all therapy, but a lot of people don't understand where autistic people are. And we need to not just acknowledge, but celebrate these differences. I've said before that when I do an autism evaluation, I don't give I give a diagnosis, but I don't frame it as a diagnosis. I frame it as an aut mitzvah, because congratulations, you're of my people. You have graduated to the world of Autistica. And this is This is exploration of what you need, how you need it, who you truly are, and undoing the years of masking and expectations and all of this stuff that people have thrust upon you. Because, again, autistic people, we don't need therapy because we're autistic, because being autistic is perfectly fine. It's a neurotype. We need therapy because we are often anxious and depressed from living in a world that doesn't understand us. And this is another thing. So again, like I've talked about the suicidality, but our sources of anxiety and depression are not like not like allistics, because allistic people have anxiety and depression due to a lack of serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, all that kind of stuff. We have anxiety because we are constantly processing far, far, far more data every second of every day than neurotypical people, and we get overloaded with what we call the intense world theory. Our brains process 42% more data at rest than neurotypical people do. So we are constantly on edge. We are constantly looking for danger. We are constantly processing all the variables and exhausted by this. And we interpret that as anxiety. We are depressed because we realize that we have low energy. We can't do as much as other people. We are often excluded because we are different. We are depressed because we live in a world that is not made for us, and we struggle every second of every day to fit that mold in order to be quote unquote successful. And this is a big thing for us. And understanding the alexithymia, understanding our interoceptive difficulties. Because again, oftentimes I will say something like, so tell me about your anxiety, because it goes without saying that we have anxiety.
I love that. That's so much better than how do you feel?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about your anxiety. Oh, I never had a therapist ask me that. I just felt centered.
Exactly. Because that's the approach that we have. Because again, I never start off a session like, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm also fine. No, that's bullshit. I say, tell me about your anxiety. Tell me about your day, because we get right into it. So
yeah.
But that's the thing. So occasionally somebody will say, well, I don't have any anxiety. And I will say, have you had an upset stomach lately? Are you constipated? Have you puked lately? Well, yeah, I puked 3 times yesterday, but I'm not anxious. Like, well, did you have food poisoning? No, I've just got a job interview. Like, well, let's reframe that, shall we? And we talk about the interoceptive cues. We talk about sweaty palms. We talk about chest pains. We talk about panic attacks. We talk about shutdowns, meltdowns, situational mutism. And this is another thing about performance anxiety, because if you have situational mutism where you get overloaded and can't speak, you might cancel a therapy session because you don't want to spend $150 and just be silent. So I understand that situational mutism is probably a given. And especially when we start to hit on big stuff, somebody is likely to go mute, and that's okay. And I will continue to talk, and I will, talk about cats, or talk about Godzilla, or, talk about
the turning around thing. Like, that would definitely help me. Also, I could text you.
Yeah.
Even if I'm in I text my husband, like if we're having a hard conversation, we will, in the room next to each other, we'll be talking, and I'll be like, I don't want to go to that dinner, whatever. The conversation gets tense, and I will begin to text him in the middle of our conversation, and then we just switch over to text.
Exactly.
It just sort of happens. We'll do both, and we'll be having kind of slightly different conversations, and then we'll just switch over to text, which is the real me instead of the performative me. I don't know what's happening.
Because that's the thing. We discuss and figure out what are your triggers and what are your glimmers. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. Triggers are the things that cause you to have a meltdown or a shutdown. Glimmers are the things that cause you to be happy. So if you're in this intense shutdown period, again, because I don't accept insurance, we can text. I see all of my people through telehealth because we are autistic. We might have difficulty leaving our homes. We might have difficulty with transportation. So if somebody zooms in and needs to text and use the chat feature when they are having a shutdown, that's perfectly fine. If they are so shut down they can't do anything, and we could talk about glimmers in order to get your emotions stable, we can recenter you, and I can be there for what we call co-regulation. Because this is the thing about us. We are not great at self-regulation because our emotions are too big. You might need a therapist who helps you co-regulate. And I can be there to help you co-regulate. I can help you be there through the rough times and help bring you back to center, because that is what we do in autistic-centered therapy. And this leads us into the second part, because so neurotypicals have a very, very difficult time understanding what is complex PTSD, CPTSD, and what is autism, because so many autistic people have complex PTSD from a lifetime of rejection and being pushed past our limits and burnout and all of these things. And as a matter of fact, burnout is like one of the biggest things I talk about with autistic adults, because it's not a matter of if you hit burnout, it's a matter of when. And all autistic adults who live in this world will unfortunately face burnout unless you have like billions of dollars and a great support system and are able to completely escape the neurotypical world.
Right.
So part 2 of autistic-centered therapy is autistic trauma work. And so we focus on, the statistics are 94% of autistic women will be sexually assaulted before the age of 18.
Damn.
I can't find statistics on men. I can't find statistics on trans or non-binary people because, again, marginalization. But 94%. So there's a lot of straight up PTSD work to do from an autistic angle. Because again, you may have processed your trauma with a very good therapist from a neurotypical perspective, but you didn't process how your body responded to it at the time, because you may have shut down, you may have had a fawn response and blamed yourself, you may have had all of the you may have said, oh yes, I was weird and this happened to me. So we have to reframe all of this, all these danger cues from an autistic perspective, because you may still be experiencing these danger cues and ignoring them every day, and the anxiety may be heightened and heightened and heightened, constant depression, constant self-blame, all this stuff. But there's also ongoing stuff where people may have, made fun of you for your interests your entire life, or said, oh, you're too intense, you're too much, or
too much,
misdiagnosed with mania or borderline personality, because, again, people didn't understand how you function. So you learn to mask, and that is a form of trauma. We also have a form of trauma that we call internalized ableism. And this is a popular thing among people who have been vastly criticized and vastly abused for being autistic, so they have to hide all their autistic traits. And then all of a sudden, you might have a child that's autistic, and you find yourself being triggered because you want to be a good parent and let them be autistic, but at the same time, they're doing the stuff that you couldn't do, and all of a sudden you start reliving all of this old trauma, and you have to fight this urge to say, don't flap, don't suck your thumb, don't do this, because you were told to do the same thing. So we have to fight this internalized ableism, and we have to be able to heal ourselves and heal our autistic person that lives within us, within this neurotypical shell that we've built from masking for so long. And that unmasking can be a form of trauma in itself. Because you're being introduced to a person that you have hidden away deep inside for many, many years. And all of a sudden you get this resentment and frustration that the world did not treat you as you needed. And that's a whole big thing in itself.
And there's so many layers too, right? Because it's like,
oh God, yes.
Unmasking feels great. Like I remember when I started unmasking, I got this, it was like a plaque. It said, take me as I am or watch me as I go. And I was like, this feels so good. Like I put it up. I loved it. But then there were a whole bunch of people who decided to watch me as I go. They were like, oh, maybe not all of my, but a lot of my masking skills were to prevent being rejected so that I would not be like cast out alone into the forest.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped masking, it came with the possibility people would leave me. But really, when I got my diagnosis, I was so hopeful. I was like, I'm going to unmask and people will love the real me. Because that's what they say, like, be yourself and people will love the real you. People did not love the real me, it turns out.
Yeah.
They really preferred the me, like the simmering down, trying to simmer down, trying to fit in, trying to be normal. And they really liked me acknowledging I was fucked up.
Yes. Yes.
Self-deprecation was part of my thing. Like I would always say, well, you know me, I have a bad personality. Well, you know me, I'm 13% agreeable on the ocean scale, a completely ableist scale. Like, well, you know me, I suck to be around, but thanks for tolerating me. And like that made me more palatable. So particularly blood relatives were like doing the charity work of like putting up with this poor, unfortunate soul. Who was at least willing to say it. And then when I was like, oh, I'm whole and complete and don't need you, which everyone was like, no. You're not a terrible person. You're whole and complete and we love you as long as you acknowledge you're a terrible person. When I was not willing to do that anymore, they're like, fuck off. You don't need us. Bye.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because people love a charity.
Fuck.
People love a good charity story of, oh, yes, I am accommodating the poor disabled person. Mm-hmm. But when you say, no, I'm just, this is me. This is the real me. And they say, well, I don't like the real you. I liked you better. And that's the thing, because very few people mask out of choice. We mask out of survival. And if all of your survival skills are based around the masking, and so many people run into rocky spots in their marriages because they start unmasking around their partner, and their partner says, well, I really like that nice and person who didn't say anything and didn't fidget, and now you're weird and I don't know what to make of that, and I don't like that. And all of a sudden you say, where's my support system? Where are my friends? Where's my job? I am afraid to come out at work because my job might fire me for asking for accommodations. And because, they say, well, yeah, just work, 60 hours a week for the rest of your life and we'll love you. And you say, well, I can really only work 20 hours a week because that's what my brain says. And they said, well, we'll just find someone else. So there's so many factors that go into trauma for us that, again, neurotypical people don't even recognize. For instance, like with my therapist, again, decent therapist, but when I was so far into trauma and so far into burnout, I was suicidal back in the day. I could not function. I could not cook. And I said, I'm eating something. And she's like, well, you need to do more. It's like, something is better than nothing. Half-assing is better than no-assing. And these are the things that we need in order to survive. And we need to learn how to meet our autistic needs instead of the bullshit needs of the neurotypical world that has been thrust upon us, because again, that's just colonialism.
Right. So that's all part of autistic trauma work. Okay, cool.
Yes. So that leads into the third part, advocacy work. So advocacy work is on two fronts: personal advocacy and advocacy on behalf of our people, because we need to find what your needs are so that you can say, no, I deserve to have my needs met because I am at least an adequate human being and I deserve to not be mistreated.
Agree. Cosign.
Exactly. We have to say, that is too much for me. That is too loud for me. I need some headphones. I need some sunglasses. I need less bullshit in my life. And you have to be able to set healthy boundaries. You have to be able to acknowledge your needs. You have to be able to feel your needs. You have to understand who you are and the needs that you may have buried. And then all of a sudden you may realize, oh my God, the reason I'm in burnout is because I've been doing, 130 times what I'm able to do. And we also need to do advocacy work on behalf of the autistic community, because there's so many insane lies told about our people. Like, again, which is, interesting about, one of my favorite memes is Vulcans can't lie. No, Spock lied. And because again, we've talked that there's with kids, we're told, oh, you might one day live a perfectly normal life, instead of you need to live the life that is appropriate for you.
Yeah.
With adults, they say, oh yes, you might never have a relationship, or might never whatever. You can't make, or if you make eye contact, you can't be autistic. If you can drive a car, you can't be autistic. Autistic people all have intellectual disabilities. All sorts of nonsense stuff.
So much nonsense. This reminds me of when the Scottish comedian Fern Brady came out. Came out as autistic. She's also queer, but this was her coming out as autistic. She put up, I think it was a tweet, whatever, Instagram, whatever your social media drug of choice is. And she was like, hey, just got diagnosed as autistic, but I promise not to be one of those people that makes autism a part of my personality. Like, promise I won't talk about this all the time. Yeah. And she got totally canceled by autistic people. Yes. They were like, this is some ableist nonsense. Well, let me tell you, Fern Brady came back and she became one of the most incredible autistic advocates. Like, she had just been diagnosed. I think this was about 2 years ago now, but she does so much advocacy work for our people. And I know I'm going to do an episode on Taskmaster. River, our content manager, and I talk about that. We both found Fern on the TV show Taskmaster, which is like so autistic, but she talked about her autism on that show. She's joined a whole bunch of campaigns. She wrote the book Strong Female Character. Like, she does tons of advocacy work, but like the day she was diagnosed, she didn't quite have it all figured out yet. It only took me a decade, but advocacy is a part of the healing journey. And there's some point you're going to figure that out. I did 10 years of doing CBT, then learning CBT, then teaching CBT to others and pushing it on others, then making a movie about how CBT fixed my autism. And then I had burnout and figured out, oops, nope, that's actually super fucked up and I better make up. Hello, here's my podcast, making up for many, many bad choices.
And that's the thing, because you don't know what you don't know. Because this is the thing. Other people say, yes, this is the absolute path, and this is the way that you should do things, because this is how we do things. And you've got to find your own needs and fight for your own needs.
And then help others.
And this is a part that I borrowed from feminist therapy, because feminist therapy talks about, needing to, advocate for yourself. Minorities of all types need to advocate for themselves. And again, it's one of those things like saying, I won't let black become my identity, is some deeply internalized racism.
Yeah. That's going to be a pass, but yeah thanks for trying there, buddy.
Yeah. And we need to say that we are indeed a valid people, and for people who are just diagnosed, coming off of a lifetime of being weird and, other people judging them, you don't know any better. So again, this is a big thing about, not being judgmental about any of this stuff, because I was in the closet for many, many, many years, because as we've talked about, I've known for a while, but it's just one of those things of what is socially acceptable and what are you free to do while still making a living in a world that doesn't understand us. So doing whatever you can, even sharing links, sharing this very podcast, it's a way to be an advocate. And that's a big reason why I do the podcast, because I recognize that because I don't take insurance, my services are out of reach for a lot of people, but right. I want to help as many people as I can. So that's why this is and will always be free. If you want to be a subscriber, please help us, because we need to pay River. But
yes. And Aaron, hi Aaron, we love
Aaron,
you.
Yes, exactly. And if we get a lot of people paying, then we can invest in Arcadia to help other people. So the more subscribers we have,
is always free. We give you bonuses and extra yummy stuff if you subscribe, but we for Matt and I, this is our advocacy work, and it will always be free.
When autistic people find a special interest, they go deep and have a lot of knowledge, even if they don't have that formal education background to go with it. If you want to capture your spin in a book, check out Angela's work at differencepress.com, differencepress.com, and find out more about becoming an author and establishing your credibility with a book.
Yeah, I will do what I can to help you in any way that I can, because again, I don't believe in gatekeeping that. I need to make a living to pay my mortgage and to support my son, and again to help pay for other
late
things.
stage capitalism.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah.
I need coffee as much as anyone else. But it's one of those things. We need to make the world a better place for autistic people in any capacity. Even if you're burned out and you don't have the energy to do it, just advocating for yourself and saying, I'm burned out, I need a nap, that counts as advocacy. Yep. Do what you can with what you can. If you've got a lot of energy, if you've got a platform, if you've got a voice, be a big advocate. If you don't have any resources, advocate for yourself. So any advocacy is good advocacy. Just please don't let the world knock you down.
Yeah.
And that comes to the fourth
when it
part.
does. When it does, hopefully there's someone doing advocacy work that will help you get picked up, because we will all get knocked down. And it's not always the right moment to be doing advocacy, but that's why when you've got even a shred in there, give back.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, hopefully someone will be there to give to you when you need it.
Yep.
Well, we are a community and we must support each other, because that's the only way that we're going to survive. We are interrelated. The myth of the autistic person being aloof and distant and never interacting with anybody. We all need human interaction. We all need support. And it may look in different ways for different people, but we all need that.
I think that's why so many people in the pandemic, when TikTok was also exploding, so many people started to identify.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeing the fallout of so much late diagnosis is because we have been alone and we've been isolated. And when advocates had a platform like TikTok, it was like, oh my God, one of the first advocates for me, two of them, I just want to give shout outs to. Penelope Trunk. Do you ever remember? She was so these were all known as Asperger's advocates for when I first came out, but Penelope Trunk was this corporate woman who was weird in the corporate world, and I was working in corporate, and she just disclosed her Asperger's, again using the term that was used way back then. And for me, just seeing someone, I wasn't disclosing at that point, even though I had a diagnosis, but seeing someone disclose was huge. And reading her blog in the early 2010s, and then finding Alex Planck's Wrong Planet, which he started when he was a teenager. Yeah. And I get to meet Alex and interview Alex and meet his therapy dog. Finding Wrong Planet was just oh my God. And that was completely free, total labor of love. Alex was a teenager and paying for all these servers on his own. It's great. It's still up there. It's crazy town. But that was such a gift, because nobody had, it was a PHP forum bulletin board, old school, pre-Reddit, all the things. So yeah, that advocacy work has had effects on me for, years and years. David Finch's Journal of Best Practices, finding all those early breadcrumbs of who you are is so important. So maybe you make a TikTok.
Representation matters.
Yeah.
Being a role model, being visible, being out and proud will protect other autistics and protect the next generation. And I am out and proud because I want my son to have a role model. I don't want my son to have the life that I had. I don't want my son to fight ABA his entire life, which is a whole thing. And it's We need community. We need visible representation. We need role models so other people can stand up, say, I'm autistic and I deserve better. And hopefully you are one of these people that will realize that you deserve better too. And we make the community stronger when we all stand up together, Spartacus style.
Yes. Okay, we got 3. We got interpersonal therapy, trauma work, advocacy work. Hit me with number 4.
I call it automotive maintenance.
Okay.
we live in these autistic meat bodies.
Oh, it's autistic meat body magic.
We have a tenuous connection to our meat bodies at best. We've got the interoceptive difficulties, the proprioceptive. Interoceptive difficulties are difficulties understanding the sensations coming from within the body. The call is coming from inside the house. Who's there? Inside the house. What do you mean? I didn't star 69 you. So we don't know where these signals are coming from. We might not feel hungry. We might not feel sleepy. We might not feel the need to go to the bathroom, which might lead to chronic insomnia, which might lead to lethargy during the day and low energy. We might forget to eat for hours on end and get hangry, or get very, very weak and pass out because we haven't eaten all day. We might forget to drink because we don't give our bodies water. You might forget to go to the bathroom because you're very busy, and then all of a sudden you're chronically dehydrated, or you've got kidney stones, or you've got chronic constipation because you're not paying attention to these needs. So the automotive maintenance is essentially driving a car. All of the lights are on, but you don't know what any of them mean. And you don't know how to check the levels of anything. So we have to learn how to schedule maintenance for our meat bodies, how to eat anything. Because we are notoriously picky eaters due to sensory sensitivities, due to flavor profiles, due to food availability, due to executive functioning difficulties, we might need to take vitamins in order to supplement our food intake. We might need to have, 30 pounds of chicken nuggets in the freezer so you can dump them in an air fryer so that you have a 2-step meal: 1, open bag; 2, dump in air fryer, and then you have food.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things I had to do, this was really hard, and I don't have like a lot of money hangups, but when I realized I really only like very few foods and they have to be the exact same name brand, really is the case most of the time. And maybe even the same batch. Like if there's a reformulation, it's probably over. And this is true for my like toothpaste, my everything.
Oh, yeah.
When I need to discover something new. So like my protein levels were super low. And so I was like, my doctor recommended that I do protein shakes. And so I bought, a protein shake, whatever I bought, and it was gross. There was no way I was ever it just wasn't happening.
No.
What I actually needed to do was go to the store, or maybe multiple stores, or maybe Amazon, because I don't know why I said go to the store, because I don't leave my house. I order everything online. So that was a lie.
Same.
And order a lot, more than I felt like I could afford. About 40 different kinds of protein shakes. Yeah. And then I needed to actually schedule time with a body double, because I don't like tasting things that aren't good. So I needed a body double. I nominated my husband to try each of these protein shakes and then be honest with myself, which is ridiculously hard, especially if somebody else was trying it. It is so hard for me to be honest with myself about whether I'm like, I like it. No, I like it. I do like it. So there was, out of every protein shake, it took me weeks. It was weeks, and it was hundreds of dollars. And I know that's privilege that I can do this, but I found one protein shake that I like, one brand, one particular sub brand. Like they have 5 kinds of chocolate shakes. It's only like one tiny one. But I always have a case of them in my fridge because it's the only one I'll drink. So it's not about buying the case of chicken nuggets, or like I will, if you would like me to drink water, I will only drink Fiji water. I will not drink tap water. I will not drink Deer Park. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why water tastes. I don't know why it's fucking intolerable. I don't know why glasses taste like soap and feet. But if you hand me like water, like I cannot drink out of your glass. I cannot.
It's
like,
because your water is square shaped. Square shaped water is inevitably better.
Right, exactly, and smooth. It doesn't make listen, no crinkly noises right in front of the microphone.
Yeah,
the crinkly noises from those thin bottles, it makes them undrinkable.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
But like, I figured that out because I once had Fiji water and it worked for me. Right, when I had to do protein shake, it took a long time. Chicken pot pies, one of the things I'll eat. You know how many brands of chicken pot pie I'll eat? One brand, hate all the others. Too liquid, too gelatinous, crust too thick, chicken too something gristly. I don't know. Chicken kind of grosses me out. It has to be very particular. So like granting myself the permission to try 200 different protein shakes and then throw them out. And then also the permission to be wrong. So I thought I liked this one brand is Fair Lakes, doesn't matter. But I thought I liked the vanilla and the chocolate. So I bought a case of the vanilla and a case of the chocolate. I did not like the vanilla. It was not drinkable. And it took me like a month to give myself permission to throw out a $40 case of shakes.
Yeah.
Like that is hard to do. It's not like
it is.
It's very hard to do, but that is like automotive maintenance.
Yeah.
It's autistic meat body work.
Yeah, because again, if we don't love it, it's like trying to force ourselves to eat gravel.
It's not happening.
Our bodies do not register it as food, and it becomes a PDA thing where we won't do it because we have to maintain autonomy. It becomes a gigantic obstacle in daily functioning. So this is why you have to figure out it. But again, like with your car, if you said, "Oh, this oil is on sale," it normally goes in, I don't know, the lawnmower, but it's on sale. So it's going to ruin your car,
right?
So you need to find what specifically works for your body. You need to find the sleep schedule that works for your body, because if you have what we call delayed sleep phase onset, it means that your body's circadian rhythms, your sleep-wake cycle, might be pushed forward a few hours. So you might stay up until 5 a.m. and then sleep until noon. So a second shift job is probably for you.
Yeah.
So not everybody is built for the 9 to 5
grind. I sleep in shifts. I do. I have 2 sleep shifts. I have a break in the middle of the night. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that
works
is a
for
way.
me.
After I finish work for the day, I will go crash for like 4 or 5 hours, then wake up, then go back to sleep later on, because I need to reset my brain from the day.
Mm-hmm.
And these, you have to find what works for you personally, because you are the only, no one wrote a manual for your particular meat body. You need to do research, and we are a research-loving people, but you need to do research and pay attention to this. You need to pay attention to, again, with the alexithymia and the interoception difficulties, pay attention to what these chest pains mean. Pay attention to what the stomach pains mean. Pay attention to, like, any tingling in your arms and legs or fingers or ears or whatever, because everything is a signal being told to you for a reason, and you may have to learn how to interpret the reason. And these are all things that everybody, neurotypicals, tend to take for granted because their meat body needs are more uniform than ours. They don't have the alexithymia. They don't have the difficulty in awareness, and this is what I call the gummy bear metaphor. And we'll post an image about this too, because I need to update the image, but we'll do that. So let's say that neurotypical people can identify: I am happy, I am sad, I am hungry, I am nervous, I need to use the bathroom. It's like having a bag of gummy bears, and one gummy bear is happy, one gummy bear is need to use the bathroom, one gummy bear is hungry, and you can eat one gummy bear at a time and say, "Oh yes, this is a cherry gummy bear. Oh yes," and you can just eat 2 or 3 gummy bears and you're good. But with us, it's like the gummy bears have been sitting on a console in the sun, and they're all melted together in one gigantic multicolored, multi-flavor gummy. And we are trying to chew on this entire gigantic gummy, multi-flavored, huge, fills our mouth, and we're chewing and we're chewing and we're chewing and trying to figure it out. And we just can't figure out the individual flavors. We can't pick out the individual flavors, and it's very overwhelming. And that's the reason we lead to shutdowns and meltdowns and situational mutism, because we are constantly dealing with all of these sensations all the time, forever. And learning how to pay attention to your meat body and take care of these needs will decrease the amount of stimuli your body has to interpret at any given time, giving you more resources to interpret the stuff that you need to interpret. If you meet your needs for eating and drinking and sleeping, you're going to be able to do better work. You're going to be able to do your special interests. You're going to be able to relate to people easier as yourself. You're going to have resources. And again, we've all talked about the spoon analogy before. I've told people that I like hit points because I'm a fan of Pokemon. We have only so many hit points throughout the day before we faint. And every single one of these things takes up hit points. But if you have a schedule, if you have a system, because again, we don't do habits, we do systems. We do deliberate structuring of our lives, because habits, that we don't do that. That's not how our brains are wired. So if you have systems to accommodate for all this stuff, you can save some hit points for when you need it. And teaching people how to do this.
We've talked about same food, same clothes, like all of those maximize your hit points. If I try something new, I could try something new. I tried foie gras once, like a year ago. It was very revolutionary.
That's scrambled geese innards, is it not?
Yes. Not for me, by the way. Cornflakes, revolutionary for me. I still find cornflakes spicy. It's like, that's right at the end of my food testing abilities. But I tried foie gras, but like, that was a lot of hit points. It was 2 hours of conversation. Like, I still think about it, and it takes up processing energy, the looking at it before, the feeling of having eaten it. Like, that's a lot. And like, it was fun. It was like a fancy meal with a friend from out of town. Like, it was a conscious choice. It wasn't like somebody threw me into the deep end of the pool with the foie gras or something. But still, like, if I had to give a speech that day, or if I had to record the podcast that day, not a great use of my hit points. Like that night, it was a fine use, but you don't have to be thoughtful about it. But as you learn to be thoughtful about it, you're learning, like, you're not going to take the car into the shop if you have a super important job interview the next morning and they need the car there for 2 days. It's going to be a bad day to not have a car.
Exactly.
So,
and saving hit points wherever possible, because again, I don't think I could bring myself to go to a fancy restaurant these days. I'm much more along the lines of, I will DoorDash some McNuggets, and then when the driver comes, I will sneak out of my house like Gollum getting a fish, and then run back in and eat my food in solitude.
I got you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I like that they send a picture of your front door, so you know it's there, and they're not, because they've taken the picture, they've left. I'm not going to have to talk to anyone, and I can see it's there. It's so like secure. There's no chaos. I'm going to open the door, and I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to bring it inside and eat it alone. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yes. This is the way, and this is how, and these are the things, because again, autistic culture has existed from the beginning of time, but it's not something that we've really started to talk about until recently. And these are the life lessons that we need to pass on from generation to generation. We need to accumulate more and more information about who we are as we go. And I'm guessing that no one ever taught us how to take care of our autistic meat bodies, because they didn't know that it was a need.
Right.
And we need to learn about all of this. It's a big, important thing for us.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Interpersonal therapy, trauma work, advocacy work, and taking care of your autistic meat body with maintenance services. That
We need an
is
autistic meat body mug.
Autistic-Centered. It is coming soon. Oh, I've actually seen the designs.
Oh, have
but
you?
I'm not no
good.
updates. I want to surprise you when it's ready. I have a whole
that'll be
plan to
fantastic.
surprise you. Surprising
I'm
you
very
in a good
impressed.
way. This is how
good.
autistic people surprise people. I'm going to surprise you by sending you a mug that you have requested with words that you know will be there. Are you ready for the surprise? It is coming soon.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way. Oh my goodness. I love this. So Autistic-Centered Therapy, I have seen a way that you write it. Is it like AUCENT or something?
AUCT. Capital A, lowercase u, capital C, capital T, because ACT is already a thing, so we have AUCT. The new gold standard, because AU is the chemical symbol for gold. So
that's why I always wear gold.
This is the new gold standard for autistic therapy, AUCT. And if you want to know more, I've got it on my blog, on my website, mattlowrylpp.com, and we'll post a direct link to that, and we'll post a link to my friend Amanda's description of this. And we will definitely be doing a training with Meg early next year. We haven't set a date yet. We're going to take care of the summit in January 1st and then go from there. But we're all going to be doing trainings to educate people because, again, we're like 5 people across the entire country. So we need many, many more practitioners, especially autistic practitioners, to come out and do some stuff.
Is there, like, not necessarily in a copyright way, but is there an intellectual property or history behind Autistic-Centered Therapy? Was it invented? Was it co-developed? How do you describe the intellectual property of Autistic-Centered Therapy?
I had an idea and put it on my website.
And Matt had an idea, and Matt put it on his website, and then Matt called some friends and said, what do y'all think?
Yeah, I said our friend group is called the Autisticrats because I find it amusing, and they join me in all the trainings that I do with Maisie Sutancho and Meg Proctor and everybody. And I said, "Hey, friends, what do you think about this?" And everybody started bouncing some ideas, and now we all say, "Ah, yes, this is the way."
So you are the father of Autistic-Centered Therapy.
I am at least. This is my proud baby. I am proud to have coined the phrase. My friends were there when I was like, "Hey, how about this?" And then one of my friends, Aaron Finley, said, "Oh yes, ACT is already taken." And I said, "How about AUCT?" Ah, yes, that's nice. So and again, my friends are the ones who says, "Yes, this is the way. This is how we should do things." And so we are bouncing ideas off of each other, and we are coming up with stuff. And Cade came up with the graphic, and we'll be doing trainings, and we'll get his PhD any day now. And we will continue to educate the world and teach people how to treat us more effectively. Because again, we are all interdependent. I am very, very grateful for my friends for being there and saying, "Yes, let's do this. Let's do this." And yes, this is fantastic. So I need my friends for co-regulation and for emotional support. And you all need people too. So yes.
Love it. Love it.
So on that note,
good.
Hey Angela, what's your favorite part about being autistic this week?
My favorite part about being autistic this week is, honestly, this talk about Autistic-Centered Therapy was so good. I had another one I want to share, which I might save for a future episode. But what I will say is the impact that doing advocacy has on me. I wrote this little thing this week. I got the third person. I wrote this little thing. I want to share this in a longer way, but I got my third email about the show specifically saying our podcast saved someone's marriage
Oh, wow.
or like serious relationships. So third one, I wrote it down. Now, of course, I can't find it, but I will. Yes, here I did. I wrote it down. So the first one that I got was a married couple with 2 kids. They reached out. It was the guy who reached out. He said, I listened to your podcast. I just figured out I'm autistic. And then he reached back out and he's like, my marriage was very close to ending. Thanks to your podcast, I found Autistic-Centered Therapy. I've read a million books. I found a million resources, and our marriage is in a great place. Then there is a non-binary couple. So if you guys are listening and you recognize yourselves, it is you. Yes. They're a non-binary couple. They lived in a house with another roommate and they had a bunch of sensory issues. And we had a podcast where we were talking about sensory issue stuff. And they realized they needed to make some agreements and move. They've moved, and within the place, they each have their own rooms now, and they each have like their own space in the house. So they got practical advice from our show. And then the third one that happened this week, that was like the big win. I had no idea. It's actually a business colleague. Never would have guessed she was autistic. Never would have guessed she had any issues in her relationship. Like, just looks like Barbie doll, perfect. And there's been 20 years of tension in her relationship that when she realized she was an autistic woman, she was able to relieve, and said their relationship is better than ever. Oh. And 2 of those relationships are mixed neurotype. The non-binary couple, they are both neurodivergent in some way. So, yeah. How fun is that? We're out here saving relationships. Awesome. That's my advocacy work update for you.
That's awesome. I'm glad that we can be of any help to you, because I'm glad that, because again, when we do the podcast, it's just me and Angela sitting here talking, and I never know who is going to be listening, or if anybody's going to be listening at all, because we've got several thousand downloads, but it might just be Jeff in Colorado.
Correct. Over and over and over again.
Times.
Yes.
Not to disparage Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for listening 30,000 times. But yeah, I'm really, really glad that I'm glad that it has meaning. So I'm very happy. And it just occurred to me that my friends' real last names, not the names they use on Facebook, Amy Hassler and Rachel Krause. So if you're in Massachusetts, please seek them out, because they do AuCT. Amanda Bessinger is in Chicago. Aaron Finley is in California. And Cade Sharp is in that Washington. That state up there.
State of Washington. Yes.
But yeah, sorry, go.
We will link to the Autistic friends, and I will say, of those 3 people, so the guy who reached out, the non-binary person who reached out, and the woman who reached out, they all listened to our show and got help from a therapist. They were able to find like the right therapy and know the right things to talk about and what they needed to process, which is really key, and what the show can help with. But there is, more work, more conversations always to be done that's personal to you. We're not like doing therapy here or giving advice, but maybe we'll point you in some directions to have some hard conversations that could save your relationship. We hope.
That's awesome.
Or whatever. So share your news with us. I want to hear it. People track me down. It's info@Autistic Culture Podcast. You can go on Substack. You can comment on a post if you want it to be confidential. There's a contact us page. Track us down. I won't disclose your identity and share it. But we love to hear your updates and how the podcast has helped you. And if there are any questions that you have, a few times a year for our paid members, Matt and I do Ask Me Anything nights, do Q&A nights, where as a paid subscriber, you can actually talk directly to us, ask any questions, share anything live. By the time you are listening to that, we will have just done one. There will be another one scheduled. All you need to do is upgrade to a paid membership to participate in that. Otherwise, email us or comment, and we'll comment back. And we would love to hear from you. That's what I got.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
If you like this show, you can help other people find it by taking a few minutes to rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
You can find out more about writing your book with me at differencepress.com. That's difference, DIFFERENCE, press, PRESS.com.
Or getting a psychological evaluation or consult with me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. That's MATT, Matt Lowry, LOWRY, LPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember,
no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else.
Special thanks to our content manager, River Robbins, and Aaron Stoner, our producer, for making us look and sound good.